Okay, last part of victimization. I want to look at like people who are low risk victims versus people that are high risk victims. So this will be really important just in terms of life and safety as we talk about profiling criminals and looking at that. Who is low risk, who's high risk? And I think you're going to see overlap with some of the theories about crime as well. Okay, so let's start. All right, low risk victims. If you usually remain close to your home or to work, you're probably not as likely to be a victim of crime. And the idea is that you're not going to the places where crime is more likely to happen. You generally do not frequent places they don't know well. So that's kind of what I just said. So low risk victims aren't visiting places they don't know well. If you do ever go to a place you don't know well, much, much smarter to go in broad daylight. So, matter of fact, the morning hours are the least likely time when crime happens. And I mean like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So, if you have to go to a new place, visit at a time that's safer. You lock your doors at night. Makes sense. Okay. You're safe. You lock everything. You lock your car. You take everything out of sight in the car so that way people can't see things in your car. All those things are just smart, anti theft sort of precautions. You hold a steady job. You hold a steady job and you have numerous friends. Okay, so so you got friends, you've got a job. Those things are highly correlated with low risk victims. I guess because you're probably more likely to hang out with those friends, rather than be moving around groups of people that you don't really know. And that can be a problem, of course. And then lastly, this is classic, right? You don't have friends that are criminals, then you're a low risk victim. Don't be surprised when you become a victim of crime when you hang around people that are criminals. All right, and then the last thing we have here is, they're criminal friends. I guess I already had it on there. And then this is a video I'll put up, and it's about how to protect yourself just in general when you're running or walking, and somebody comes up behind you. I'll put this up as well. Really highly recommend you watch this. It's great. It actually has former George Bush's daughter in it. They do a really great job on the Today Show. All right. High risk victims. Well, one, they live in high risk situations. You live in areas that are high crime areas. By the way, this is why when you saw the victimization of blacks are much more likely to be the crime victims than others because blacks are much more likely to live in areas that are high crime. They live in inner cities. They live in very crowded tenements where people don't really know each other, where there's transient populations. All the things we've talked about. African Americans are more likely to live in those areas and they're more likely, therefore, to be victims of crime. And remember, they're more likely to be victims of crimes by people of their own race. So it's definitely a situation that we need to, as a policymakers in our country, work on. People that are high risk victims, sex workers. Okay, I mean that probably isn't a surprise, but you work on the street. I mean that's not a great place. In fact, a lot of serial killers, their targets were people who worked the streets. Um, if you work during night hours, so that's more dangerous. If you come interact with strangers, and therefore you become an easy target. So anytime you do those things, that makes you a high risk victim. So again, a lot of this stuff is very similar to some of the first things we looked at with the theories of crime. Drug use. I mean, drug deals go bad. I mean, that's reality. If you start dabbling in drugs, you're going to come across people who are felons. That and the likelihood that they rip you off or that a drug deal goes bad and someone gets injured or assaulted or something is very high. Again, having friends who are criminals. And then if you congregate in street groups or gangs, you're much more likely, to be a victim. So if you're around those type of people, you're more likely. So street groups, gangs that have criminal intent, you're around them, you're going to be victimized. All right, that's it for that. It should be a sort to do a high risk versus low risk. Pretty easy stuff. I don't think it's hard, but it is really important to understand, and also will kind of come in handy as we're looking at profiling. All right, thanks.